What is up, everybody? And
Hey.
welcome to another weekly episode of the Bearded Browns podcast. Man, so much to talk about today again with Andrew Berry's drafts in the past 4 years. We were going to do 3 years and try to keep it a little tight, but we're not doing that today. We're going all in, all 4 years.
All 4 years.
I almost said what's up to you, Angel.
And hopefully 4 more years after this would be
Yes.
a good indicator that he's doing a good job.
So, let's get right into it. Come on, work, please. Hopefully nobody's echoing. Let's get that out of the way now. Anybody hear an echo at all? No? Good.
I don't.
I don't.
Damn it, Chad.
Dang it.
But I'll start it off. We're going to go with the year 2020. New GM, Andrew Berry, comes to the Cleveland Browns and picks my least favorite pick.
Yes.
Round 1, Jedrick Wills.
Yes.
Pick 10, offensive tackle out of Alabama. And I want Chad to give his reason for his grade on Jedrick Wills. I don't want to talk about it too long. We're going to go with
Yeah,
it.
so I mean the basics. So we kind of are creating a grading scale here at the Bearded Browns. We are trying to have some kind of like semi-objective way to grade these players, and so we essentially made a we'll say it's a 3-point grading scale, starting as 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, and 2.5, and essentially. Just to throw this out there, the only person who's earning a 2.5 is an elite franchise quarterback. Otherwise, the grades are based on whether the guy is a contributor at all to your team, if not 0. If they are some sort of a backup or role player or something, but never really have a consistent starting role, 0.5 point. A starter is about a 1-point player or a very core 6 rotational player, and we'll kind of get into that when the time comes. And then 1.5 points is a elite core positional player or a consistent starter, an elite player at a non-core position or a consistent core starter. And then a 2 is an elite core 6 player or a franchise quarterback, and a 2.5 is an elite franchise quarterback. So following those definitions, that's just a way, because any draft, you can always be like, this guy's a good pick, this guy's a bad pick. So we're setting it up for all 4 of these sections to say he's a good pick, but also maybe at a better position or more impactful player or whatever it might be. So Jedrick Wills in this scale ends up with a grade, and this is so tough for me to even say because it's a pretty positive grade, is a 1.5. And the reason is because we decided the core 6 positions outside of quarterback for building a team. And this is not our idea. This is all over NFL, Move the Sticks, Scouts, Inc., like all these other places basically have defined the most important positions that most people agree with would be edge, defensive line, and your corners on defense. And then your wide receivers, your tackles, and just as this is a very recent addition, is tight ends, because the current NFL, if you have an elite tight end or a top tight end, or you just, those players make it to the playoffs and do well. So with that in mind, we can argue the scale another time. If anybody wants to comment or have questions on it, we're just starting it off, so we'd love to check it out. But by that definition, that puts Jedrick Wills at a consistent starting player at one of the core 6 positions, landing him at a 1.5, the second highest score that a non-quarterback can get.
And that starts our timer now. Angel, go.
Yeah, you have to go with Jedrick. I know we immediately mean the consensus doesn't like Jedrick Wills, but the numbers shows that he's pretty decent when he wants to be. So I agree, 1.5 is a good score for him. I think he can be higher if he focuses on his potential.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's this year. It's now or never. That's it.
The good news is I think I kind of agree. I think he has a better chance of holding this score, or like even exceeding expectations a little more than he does of just like getting worse and completely falling off. So We'll see, but that was one of the tougher ones to have to give out. It's basically like an A level score for a player who just doesn't seem to deserve it. But all right,
Round 2. Pick number 44, Grant Delpit out of LSU. You gave him a 1. And he disappeared after that.
He's like,
He's forgot.
boom,
I
he
didn't
dropped.
choose a 1. He's back. He was back. Hold on. All right, Chad.
can you hear me?
Angel. I can't hear Angel now. What just happened?
I got booted. I figured it had something to do with Jedrick Wills.
That's what I thought. No, it was actually Grant Delpit's pick. Angel reconnect. I don't know what just happened. Chad broke it all. Yeah, round 2. Can you hear us? Angel is voiceless, so hopefully he'll reconnect.
We'll let Angel try to reconnect. Yeah, I just went frozen for a minute, then popped off, and then popped right back on.
Yeah, we heard everything you said. You're just gone.
Okay.
That was weird. That's
Yeah,
not happen
odd.
often. We had a good podcast going. No echoes, nothing. And then, boom.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting for hopefully Angel to pop right back on, yeah, Grant Delpit, 44th pick, pretty decently mid-high range in the second round. I mean, this score is tough too because I believed in him before we drafted him. I thought it was the right pick. People are a little salty because Antoine Winfield ended up being a better safety who came in, I think, the exact pick after this. But I think at the time, I think all of Grant Delpit's like slow progression and difficulty early in his career was all based on that early Achilles tear. And I think had that not happened, I don't know if we'll ever see the player he absolutely could have been, but I think had that not happened, we'd be looking at this pick as even higher than a 1, which is a consistent starter at the position.
Yeah, I think he'll show up this year. I don't want to say that he was scared to get injured again or what might have it. I mean, it goes without being said. Every day you go out there, there's a fear of getting injured, and you try not to do that. And I think that he's just got to let that part of it go. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, some of it. I mean, that's just part of the recovery process, is just mentally getting over that hurdle. I think the big thing is he got hurt and tore that Achilles in his first training camp. So at the time where he really needed to learn the most, he didn't necessarily have to go into a starter. He could have taken some time to develop. And what makes that tough is he missed that. So he's trying to do that as a sophomore while still coming off that Achilles. And that's a hard task because you really you want to hit your sophomore year and just stride because now you understand the game better. But he had to do not only his sophomore year, had to basically be his freshman year. He was coming off of a brutal injury, so it was even slower.
Guess who's back? Can we hear him?
Hi.
He's back. Oh, then he gone. Oh.
No, wait. I'm still here. I just have to. I have to pull up the doc. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, you
Dude,
go do your
this
thing.
is horrible.
But yeah, so that's the Grant Delpit
Oh.
story. Is what we saw out of him his third year is what I believed we could have seen out of him his first or second if he wouldn't have had that bad of an injury. And that's not Andrew Verri's fault at this pick, which is why I think this was still a really good pick. Every indication is that this was the guy.
I agree. We're going to move on. Round 3, Jordan Elliott, 88th pick, defensive tackle out of Missouri, a 0.5. I could agree with that score as well. It's fitting. I mean, he's either on or he's really off. That was it.
On or off, exactly.
I should have thought of this earlier. I wish we could put this score on like an extra screen so people could see the scoring system while we're going.
I could.
It'd be so helpful.
That would be helpful for me. Oh, there it is. I got mine anyway. So take
Like mine's
that.
up. It'd be cool if like the listeners could see it so they
Yeah, I
get
could
like
do
why.
that. I can make that happen.
Is that possible? Let's talk through it, and if you can try to do that, that'd be awesome. If you can't, not the hugest deal. So Jordan Elliott's kind of the first
Right.
flop in this draft, and it's not. It seemed like a good pick at the time. It was highly rated by places like PFF because
Yep.
of the pass rush potential, but he struggled to like find a place in the different schemes we had. And then what made it the worst was that Schwartz came in. It finally looked like we have a defensive scheme that's going to work for most of the defensive players, and he just could not perform in it. And so now he's not even on the roster. He's a borderline guy that you could probably have given a 1 or a 0.5 because he was a consistent starter or rotational player for a while at one of the core positions, but he was so inconsistently in and from a backup to a starter, and then he's off the team before the end of his first contract, or after the end of his 4-year contract, and so it made me lean towards giving him a 0.5.
I agree.
Yeah, that's potential was there, man. Wish he would have worked out, but didn't.
Yeah, he didn't progress into the player I think it looked like he should have. But
Win some, you lose some. That's just the name of the game.
how are we doing on the timer for the first round?
7 minutes and 51 seconds. So,
Oh,
round
awesome.
3, Jacob Phillips picked 97th linebacker out of LSU.
So 9 picks later.
Yeah, about 0.5 as well.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you get. What do you guys think of this? So for me, the reason I gave him a 0.5, it's tough. He could have earned a 0 or a 0. He was almost a non-contributor on the Browns. He could have earned a 1 based on like the talent he came in with. So I just sort of split the difference and put him as a 4.5. When I think of Jacob Phillips, every Browns fan that's really in tune to the team just thinks injured. He's always injured. He left the field so many times. But for those who looked back, and I had to kind of look back and watch some highlights of him, some film, read some stuff on him. Man, starting even his rookie year, every time he was out on the field, he looked JOK level incredible. I mean, for a 3rd-round pick, he looked like he came in as a rookie and was ready to walk into his sophomore year as the starting linebacker, and instead he missed most of his rookie year. Then in his 2nd year training camp, I think he tore his maybe pec tendon and then tried to come back the next year. And then I think he tore his biceps tendon. And so it just was one of those crazy things where you can see the talent every time he was out there. You're like, wow, this kid. And then they drafted JOK, I think, later while he was still on the team. And I was like, him and JOK are going to be freaking incredible.
And he did.
And he just could not stay healthy. So this one's debatable. I can see a lot of listeners being like, I'm not giving that guy anything. He barely contributed. But I just think, like I said, I hate to take injuries as a penalty for Andrew Berry drafting because there wasn't a giant injury history. And at the pick at the time, much like Grant Delpit, was the right pick. The injury just was a torn muscle that happened fluky later, and there's no control for that. Unless the only time I would not excuse that is if the guy was constantly injured in college and everybody kind of said physical wasn't great, he's an injury concern, and then you draft him and he gets injured, then I would hold that on the GM. But in this case, I just had trouble doing it. So again, just like Jordan Elliott, I kind of split the difference and I gave him a 0.5.
I think real quick, I'm going to do this real quick. I think we just had high hopes for a linebacker coming out of LSU, and injury prone killed it. That was it.
Yeah, I agree. Next.
This one is upsetting. Round 4, Harrison Bryant, pick 115, tight end out of Florida Atlantic, a 0.5. I'm going to touch base with this one really quick because in the beginning years when he wasn't out there too often, he was making some decent catches, and then gradually he just seemed to fall off. It was like Njoku stepped up, started catching the ball, and Bryant just declined.
It looked like the reason we could let Austin Hooper walk, who was kind of a busted free agent pickup.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like, oh, he's not doing that much, and this kid as a rookie is showing something. He'll develop into a better player than Hooper is even. And then he just kind of floated around that same couple 100-yard a season, kind of like 1 to 300 yard receiving type of a guy. and then just sort of they ended up using him in all these weird fluky roles, special teams, fullback, any way they could get him out on the field for versatility, but he just didn't take many steps as a tight end. And again, he's another guy on this draft board here after Jordan Elliott and Jacob Phillips, who's now playing for another team. Now, props to all three of those guys. They're still in the NFL. They still signed somewhere, but I don't think they signed anywhere with the expectation to be a starter. So it's hard to give him anything more than a half point.
Yeah, he was. It was a bad sign for him last year when they were lining him up at the goal line to be a gimmick
Almost
player.
fullback, if you like.
Yeah, fullback. It was done. He was done. He was like, yeah, he's not going to be on the team next year because they're looking for something to use him with, and they're just lining up at the goal line, just use him as a fullback or just a trick play. But I kind of started to like him, but unfortunately, good thing the Chiefs stepped up.
And now he's a Raider.
Yeah, hopefully he does well there.
I hope. I mean, I don't want to see him do bad. I mean, he's got potential. And I agree with the 0.5 grade as well on that. Round 5, Nick Harris, pick 160, center out of Washington. Another 0.5 for Andrew Berry's first
I'm
draft.
telling you guys, so this is really funny because there's so many guys he drafted that I think had the situation been different for this team, could have either been a 0 or even could have been a 1 or better if they either didn't get hurt or there was some more consistency. But again, Nick Harris, 0.5 is like a good backup with the potential to start, but never found a consistent starting role. And he's not a core player, which meant his highest grade could have been a 1.5 if he was an elite player, a 1 if he was a consistent starter, and a 0.5 if you're just a backup, even if you have the potential to eventually become a starter. And that's kind of his situation. He had somebody in front of him when he got here, and then by the time then he had an injury, he was scheduled to be the starter, right? His, I think, second or third year. I think his third year, 2022, he was scheduled to be the starter. He had kind of like built up in that position, and then he got hurt. They signed Ethan Pocic, and then he played so well that it was like, oh, we don't even need to keep Nick Harris. We'll just draft a young guy and let him walk. So, the starting, if somebody loves Nick Harris as a Browns fan and said, like, I think he should be a 1, I would take that argument like a lot of these guys we just talked about, because I think, I think he ended up with like Seattle. He could end up their starter, and maybe he is a starting level player. We just get to see it here. And I can't give the guy a higher grade, right? If we never saw it, if it's just a hypothetical starter. So
there we go. We got 1 minute left. Round 6, Donovan Peoples-Jones, pick 187, wide receiver out of Michigan. Gave him a 1. Yes, Michigan guys usually don't work here. We'll see. I mean, we got that just goes without saying. But anyways, I thought the kid had potential, and I think the 1 is a fair score that he might be in Detroit and make some things happen.
I think he earned that 1 just because he had 1 year where he put up like 800 and something yards.
And we all
every other year is like 300, 450, whatever it was. Like those are 0.5 type of grades. But then he came out 1 year. He played really well. It is a receiver, so it's an important position. He never made like the top 2 positions. He kind of was always the third guy to come in behind either Jarvis and OBJ, or then eventually Cooper and then Moore. And it just kind of one great year in his third year, and we thought it was going to just keep building from there. And then the last year he just fell off completely, and I don't know what even ever happened there. He didn't do anything for Detroit either. He had like 5 catches for 50 yards.
Yeah.
He went to Detroit. That's what happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, Detroit, it's good.
They throw the ball a lot.
Yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see if he's with it. He'll have a time to practice and kind of like get into the system, see what he does this year. I think he has potential, at least there, to be a good number 2, but we'll see. I was kind of disappointed he didn't work out. I kind of liked him myself, but we started getting better players around us, so you had to get rid of somebody.
You just liked hearing that DPJ, touchdown.
Yeah, no, the 1 score I agree with. Yeah, he contributed enough to kind of sit there and be like interested, but
yeah,
wish he would have been better.
So in total, that gives the 2020 NFL Draft a grade of 5.5 total with our grading scale. That's, well, Chad's, but ours. That's
which to me, which we have to go through a lot of drafts to see like how good do these other teams do, right, with drafting. But my hunch would be, as much as there's a bunch of 0.5s that could have been higher and these guys didn't quite hit their potential, it seems like 5.5 would be like an A grade, a good, or at least at the least like a good to great draft, because they just got so many players out of this draft who are still on the team 4 years later, still starting. Even guys who walked have the potential to stay in the NFL and start for other teams. And so it's hard for me to think like this may still have ended up being Andrew Berry's best draft. We'll see as we go through it.
I don't think so, but
yeah,
we'll go through that. We're going to start off the next 15 minutes here with the 2021 NFL Draft by Andrew Berry. And time starts. Round 1, Greg Newsome, the second, pick number 26, cornerback out of Northwestern, and that's a 1.
yeah. I mean, he's a 1. He's a good slot corner. I mean, he could be a corner on another team. He makes us good. I do think after talking with the show last week, he does make the other 2 corners maybe better because they don't have to focus on other things. They could do one-on-one, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, 1 I agree with.
I agree. He has more potential, I think, to be better, and hopefully that'll come out this year. I really do. I would say out of the 3, he's probably, I don't want to say my least favorite because that just sounds wrong, but the one that could show up and make, he does make big plays happen. We've seen it time and time again. He's another one that gets penalized quite a bit because he can't keep up with a receiver, and that is not good. Nope. Obviously. Chad?
No, and he kind of made his living off of he almost made his living off of his position, right? Like, and by that I mean it was a very important position in the NFL, I believe, and also a position that we needed pretty bad. So I just look at that as like, at the time, great pick. As a rookie, like, showed the things we needed to see. But again, like, I think a mixture of people being a little down on him because of how good Emerson is, mixed with the fact that he just doesn't seem to have made like a jump, is sort of where I think it falls short.
Yeah, I do think he has still time to mature and grow. So I think that could be a little higher at the end of his career.
All right.
And he's still with the team. They gave him a 5th-year option, which means he's technically got a mini second contract. So, that's somewhere between a 1, maybe even higher is probably more likely than lower.
Definitely.
My next favorite pick, by far, I'm going to have to say, round 2, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, 52nd pick, linebacker out of Notre Dame, 1.5. I agree with that. Possibly even a 2. I mean, the dude is phenomenal. He could read an offense. He knows what's going to happen. He watches it like a hawk. I've never seen a linebacker do it the way he does some things. I'm like, dude, how did you even get in there? What the hell are you doing to get in there? Like, what happens in your head to know that it could be play action, and he knows he could read a play action like that, it seems. And I thoroughly enjoy watching him play.
Yeah, he's my favorite player out of the last couple up to this point, as far as draft picks. JOK is, along with his pregame outfits. You've ever watched his pregame outfits and what he wears? Repping Africa. It's pretty cool how he dresses like that. But he is probably my favorite player up to this point. I was excited when they drafted him, and I'm glad to see him slowly progressing to become that linebacker we need to be dominant.
Yep.
And just be the face of alongside Miles Garrett, of course, on this
Yeah,
defense.
I think he's falling into that elite category, right? And he might already be there just after 3 seasons. I think it's early enough to grade these guys. Maybe they still continue to progress, but the grades are kind of based on, your drafting and team building. And so in a guy's third or fourth season, it doesn't mean he'll never get any better, but that's what you drafted him for, right? Was to get something out of him before you sign that second contract. Somebody like Koromoa has shown enough now that the Browns, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't even wait for this calendar year to finish before they work on extending him. He's a clear part of their defensive foundation, and he has, it wasn't a quick start, and it shouldn't have been. It was a tough situation, different defensive coordinators, different defenses.
Yep.
We all saw what was happening under Joe Woods, and how it didn't facilitate his skill set. But right now, looking at his 2023 film, that kid is a foundational defensive piece, and not shocking that he would be your guys' favorite draft picks that we've gone through so far, because he's probably the most exciting guy to watch that we've gone through so far, and the guy we should have the highest hopes for going forward.
Yes. We could run through these next three pretty quick.
Yeah. Because who are they?
Yeah.
These ones are going to have much less I think we've literally gotten to a point where at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of the draft picks that have gone by so far, you could probably say 80% of them have somewhat of a debatable grade because of what they ended up doing for this team. The next three, I'm not sure there's much to talk about. The grades, I'm not sure anyone will disagree with these grades.
We had round 3, Anthony Schwartz, pick 91, wide receiver out of Auburn. The guy was supposed to have phenomenal speed. He did
no
that,
hands.
but no hands. Yeah, thank you.
He ran without the ball. He's like, no, you need the ball, man. You need the ball. That's why we drafted you.
Yeah. Yes.
I have nothing to say about that guy.
Yeah, move on.
I told everyone for years, let's be patient. He's a developmental guy. I don't expect anything out of him until his second or third year. And those years came and went. And he had one good game. And I think it was his first game of his career where he had a couple catches.
Yeah, I remember that.
In fill-in duty, I think for Odell Beckham, who was still out with his ACL recovery or something like
Kansas
that.
City.
I'm going to touch base with these comments really quick while we got a little bit of time. Paul Moyer said he thought they drafted JOK to contain Lamar. He works. He's done it.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think they need a sideline-to-sideline linebacker, and I think I've always agreed. I don't think the Browns, as an organization, think linebacker is their key core position, but they do play Lamar Jackson twice every year, and you need guys like safety and linebacker who can make sure they can keep an eye on him and make a stop, and he's done it. He's done it finally.
James Frank says, I think he had one amazing catch against Kansas City, and he's talking about Anthony Schwartz. That's one amazing catch. That's one out of how many drops? You had stone hands, dude.
The guy played for 3 years, and I think I read when we were doing this research here that he had 286 total yards or something in the ballpark of that in 3 years, and he got to play his first game as a rookie, so he started right from the go and could not. And also, by the way, more frustratingly, fastest kid in the draft, they couldn't get him to return kicks or punts at all. He would either fumble or get hit and hurt.
Yep.
What a disaster.
We're going to move on to round 4. James Hudson, pick 110, offensive tackle out of Cincinnati, another 0.
Dude, it's horrible, man.
Just
bad.
Another squirrel.
Every time he's come in, he's been bad.
Yeah. Round 4, Tommy Togiai, 132nd pick, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. And I hate saying this
Buckeye, too.
Yeah,
man.
it is a bummer. It is 0. It was a 0, man.
0, goose egg.
Some people are good in college. Yeah, some people are good in college. Some people just can't cut it in the NFL.
And a fourth rounder, it's not like this was a 7th round pick. They're like, oh, we just took a random flyer on a guy who got, who just didn't, get targeted somewhere in this draft. This was a more legitimate, a 4th round pick is a guy you expect to contribute at least as a backup and develop into a starter. And like he wasn't like small, but he just never developed the frame or strength to make an impact on the D line, unfortunately.
Number 5, round 5, Tony Fields, the second, 153rd pick, linebacker out of West Virginia, a .5. He had a
Good special teams guy.
It's a name you hear. You hear him on some plays. You're like, all right, man. Because at first nobody knew who the hell he was, and then he just came out and was popping out at the right times. It seemed. I don't want to say he's horrible, but he's not. He's say
there.
fifth, somewhere in between a 5th and a 7th round draft pick. I would have picked him up.
Yeah, I think he's there. I think you can say that he's just there. And I think that's what he might be drafted for, just to be there. Be the guy.
I mean, there's a legitimate chance, to me, that when his contract ends after this season, because he's drafted, what is this, 21? So 21, 22, 23, 24. When his contract ends after the season, we'll get to the later draft, but this just might be Nathaniel Watson, he's going to have 3 more years left on his contract after this year. That's the kind of player where it's like Tony Fields has done good things for this team, but he might be the type of player that they already replaced because after 3 years, he hasn't progressed to looking like he deserves a second contract. So he's a guy that, like, great to have had him. He gets points because he was a useful piece, but he kind of walks out the door, right? And, like, I'm not sure you'll notice the difference without him.
No, you wouldn't. We got a couple minutes left, so we're gonna move on though. Round 6, Richard LeCounte, pick 169 out of South Georgia, a 0, and I agree.
I don't even remember him.
Oh no, there's another one in here that nobody knows who the hell this guy is, and that is in 20. That's the next one, 22. 22. It even said when I was reading the draft, it's like, does anybody remember this? No. Yeah, nothing. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It's a 6th round pick. We tried it.
It's a Georgia Bulldog too. That's weird.
South Georgia.
Oh, South Georgia. Oh, I thought it said safety. Sorry, that's South Georgia. My bad.
He is a safety out of Georgia, but no, he was wait. He's a safety out of Georgia. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. No, I thought my dyslexia.
Chad. Yeah, that was my dyslexia kicking in right there.
That's a legitimate backup. That's a legitimate backup player, special teamer that, like, I think in as late as the 6th round, you just kind of cross your fingers and you hope, like, who knows, worth the shot. And I think he got some playing time early, but he just never developed into much. I don't believe he's on the roster anymore after only 3 seasons. But I just don't see any way to give him points for that pick. So I left that one at a 0.
I agree. What is up, Dylan? I don't know who Dylan is, but this guy has been joining the show for a couple weeks here, and I thoroughly enjoy his commentary sometimes.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us, Dylan. Round 6, Demetric Felton, pick 211, running back out of UCLA, and you gave him a 0. I would have gave him a 0.5. I would have. He tried, dude. That dude was out there doing what he could, his best, when he was out there.
Yeah. Fair.
That's the one I disagree with. That is the only one, I think. Honestly, it's the only one I disagree with.
I'm surprised it's not more so far. So let's look at my scale again. How much time we have?
2:13. What do you think? Hold on, really quick, Angel. Demetric Felton. What do you think?
He was good. I mean, I think he was subject to. We had other running backs that were better in front of him, so he kind of got left behind.
All
okay,
right.
so let's look at my definition real quick of 0.5 is a good backup with a potential for a second contract and a potential for a starting role. I mean, that sounds like Demetric Felton to me.
So do you want to put a 0.5 on that? No.
The problem is he didn't get a second contract and he never made it up to a starting role.
Right.
Did he make?
I'm not sure he's even in the NFL anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like he was a decent backup, but like but just being a backup, like I just feel like those are so easy to get your hands on. So, and I wouldn't say like I could say he was a backup for a year or two, but like, was he a good backup? Like when he got a shot, was he like a really impactful player? You know,
Chad,
I'm
quit
not
highlighting
sure.
stuff. You're screwing me up.
That's why I'm telling you, the reason I made these scores is because I looked through it, and sometimes I just keep changing my mind. Like, I like Demetric Felton when we picked him, and it's like I want to give him a higher grade. So I was like, I almost have to write something down, so I'm forced to.
Well, I'm in the show
Or is it
notes.
give him a
I'm in
grade?
the show notes right now, and all I see is purple highlighting, and then Chad's name pop up right above. Oh, now he's deleting stuff and adding stuff.
Oh yeah. So the only real quick, I went back and I realized Greg Newsome, the definition for this for a 1.5 is a elite player at a non-core 6 position, which we went over, edge, D-line, cornerback, wide receiver, tackle, or tight end, or a consistent starter in one of those core 6 positions. And he's been a consistent starter at one of those core 6 positions. So technically, by my grading scale, he's actually a 1.5, not a 1.
That's what I felt. I felt like he should have been higher, and I'm
Okay.
glad you put him up to a 1.5.
Yeah. So
So
then
we
you were
can
right.
give
Yeah.
that-
I almost shorted him. So this grading actually has a 1.5 for Newsome, a 1.5 for Koromoa, and the 1.5 for Koromoa follows the same definition. He's not a core 6 position, but I have him as an elite player at a non-core position.
Yep.
So he earns the same grade. He's a more elite player at a less important position, which gives this draft, unfortunately, a final grade of only 3.5.
3.5.
Which I don't know what that means yet. I think we'll have to talk about that another time.
Yeah, we are out of time on that one. Before we touch base with the 22 NFL draft, you see our little subscriber thing down there, everybody. It's there. You can go to our YouTube page. We're trying to get 200 followers by 21 in the next 21 days. That'd be cool. I believe you can click that link there. I think that actually works to click it. That'd be kind of cool if it
Click the
does.
link.
We are so uneven with like our social platforms. Like one, we're getting followed by 150 people. One, we're getting followed by 1,800. Another one, we're getting followed by 300. It's like so all over the map.
It does.
Everywhere, man.
It happens.
It's the algorithm. Also, shout out to our sponsors for the show, Doug and C&B Excavating. Say the word.
CB
I can't say it.
Excavating.
There you go.
Excavate. Yeah.
Excavating. See, I can't say it, man. That's the speech development.
I wish I didn't live too far away. I could definitely use them out here.
Also,
This one's a long draft here. We got a lot of picks here in 2022.
Yeah, this was a long draft. It's going to be hard to give final scores to guys that have only played 2 seasons, but I just basically gave them like tentative scores, but that are more likely to go up than go down because it's hard to like get worse when you've already shown something or become a starter. But it's happened. DPJ looked like he was on the way up, and he kind of went down. So
this is
we'll
probably
see.
my favorite draft, to be honest, for Andrew Berry, the 22 NFL draft. Round 2, we traded it back for 68, 108, and 124. Round 3, we picked up Martin Emerson and the 68th pick, cornerback out of Mississippi State, and 1.5, dude. I firmly agree with that score. That dude is a monster.
And by the way, that's
man.
an already score. That's like
He's what,
that's
2
where he's
years
at
in?
now.
Yeah.
Right, 2 years in, and bam. I think that's one of Angel's favorites. I think he's the one
He
that picked him
is.
to like do big things this year, like big things.
Yeah, I like Emerson a lot. I
hated that pick.
You did. Go ahead. No, please tell us. Go ahead.
No, I'm eating crow on that one. First of all, I had studied every receiver available in this draft, and I was like, we're taking a
That's fine.
receiver. I
That's
can't
fine.
wait to grab another receiver. There was receivers I loved in the second round. We passed on them. We picked a cornerback, which I felt was like, oh, we got Greedy Williams. I think might have still been on the team at the time.
Yeah. that's a
We
good
had we just drafted Greg Newsome in the first round. We still had Denzel Ward, who was like just starting his second contract. We had given him big money. And then also I was like, and if it's not even like a position to need, but also like it was a player that I just seemed like had such a mediocre college career at Mississippi State. And I was like, we passed on all this talent for this guy.
Yeah.
And that is why Andrew Berry sits in that seat. And I sit at the Browns backers bar in Ocean Beach. And we all shake our heads and yell about how we didn't.
Draft
I don't
the
get the pick.
receiver. Yeah.
But you guys, I mean,
That's a
if
good
you
point.
love that pick when they made it,
No,
spot
I
on,
didn't.
because
I didn't love it when they made it. I kind of was like, yeah, I didn't understand it, but he grew on me, obviously, because he came
Mhm.
in and was spectacular. But you make a good point because they probably passed on receivers that everybody probably wanted at some point.
And some were misses. Some of the guys I liked at those receiver positions turned out to be nobodies, like always happens, or they're
Yeah.
like mediocre guys that we have replaced with a trade or something else. And some of them were though pretty good. But you know, when you look at the fact that he traded back and he got a talent in Martin Emerson at 68, that everyone in retrospect can say, yeah, if this guy had gone at 46 or whatever the Browns were gonna pick, everyone would be happy with that and still be talking about what a steal they got, because most people think he's like a high second round, late first round talent. So you know, good on Andrew Berry to make a trade back, and like we'll get to the rest of the guys, but at least grab one guy that was probably worth the second rounder he gave up, and then he gets 2 more picks to like shoot his darts.
And his player grade is a 65.8. That's a second year in. That's
Yeah, and I think it was actually even higher the first year in limited ability, but we talked about it in that cornerback podcast. Part of it is because he went up against some real monsters in even just in our division, with like guys like T. Higgins and Pickens, who are like tough guys that he often is put on to cover, and those weren't the only tough guys he got lined up against, because he's kind of the bigger receiver, or I mean the bigger cornerback, and he gets put up against bigger receivers. He's had a tall task, and he's earned that score so far.
we're gonna move along. Round 3, Alex Wright, pick 78, linebacker out of UAB, 0.5. I don't even like UAB.
0.5. He's a consistent. So far, and again, remember, these are all tentative scores. These could go up if he eventually becomes more. They could go down if he falls off the map in the next year and they just replace him. But he's already shown himself to be like the backup on this team. Like he rotates in with Zadarius Smith, and last year I think he was already rotating in occasionally with Clowney. And so I just spacked a like tentative 0.5 score on there and said like, okay, he's the backup, and you know, with the chance to become a rotational player or starter at a very important position.
Moving along.
Yeah. Yes, David Bell's next.
Round 3, David Bell, pick 99, wide receiver out of Purdue. Another 0.5. That's gonna have to show this
generous
year.
0.5.
Yeah.
It's because of the end of the year last year and the playoff game. That bumped him up to a 0.5. And I think he has the hands and the consistency to be higher. But will he do it on this team? Not because I don't think he can do it. I just don't think there's going to be enough room for him to do it.
To be honest, I think
Maybe
Ken
not.
Dorsey's going to use him the way that he's supposed to be used, and we're going to figure him out this year. That's what I think
hope
is going to
so.
happen.
I like David Bell.
I'd love it.
Big 10. Next.
We're going to hope. Round 4. Yeah, just highlight that for me there, Chad. Marion Winfrey, pick 108, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. And that's not for Oklahoma. That's for a big old fat 0.
This is one of those round 2 trade backs. They got Martin Emerson. The next pick they got out of that trade back was early in the fourth round, and from the Texans, and that was Marion Winfrey. He fell because there were some off the field and attitude issues, and we know Andrew Berry is not afraid to take a shot at guys with any off the field or potential like attitude issues. And this is one that did not work out. I don't think he's on a roster. Only 2 years out. He played for us in 2022, got cut for 2023, and I don't think anyone picked him up. So this one is a bit of a whiff. I don't hate the pick at the time, because in the 4th round with a draft that you have like 20 picks in, it's, I think, okay to take a swing at a talented guy that nobody else wants. So I didn't hate the pick at the time, but you know, he whiffed.
This next one's going to piss a lot of people off. It's another trade.
I mean,
for the 4th
in the
round.
beginning, they liked it, though. In the beginning, they liked it, but now toward the end,
Can anybody guess who it is? In the beginning, they liked him. It's a 4th-round pick in the 22 NFL
In the beginning,
draft.
they loved him.
They
the
loved
fans
him
were
'cause
obsessed
because
with
they
him.
he beat Baker. His leg was dominant, and then he started to show his true self.
Coming
The
out
next
of
Phil
LSU.
Dawson, they told me.
Yeah.
The greatest kicker in Browns history to come, they told me.
The other trade was round 4, Cade York, 124th pick, kicker out of LSU, and a 0. And we let him go, and guess where he's back to?
I would have gave him a 0.5 just for beating Baker.
He's back. He's right back on our practice
he's right
squad. So
back.
again, we don't finalize these scores until after the 3rd or 4th year. It's not fair to. I think you can give somebody a legitimate grade after 3 years, and then like a set in stone grade after 3, and a set in stone grade after 4. You know, he could come out, beat out our kicker now, play a great year, and then maybe he's something. Maybe he's a 1 after that, you know, for the rest of his career. Like, who knows? But like for his tentative like 2 years in grade, I'm not giving this guy any points. I'm so mad about the fact they took a kicker in the 4th round because he kicked one long kick in LSU.
What was it,
in
like 62 yards or something like that?
And it was in fog, and they're like, he could kick in the weather. I'm like, it's not cold. It wasn't
fog.
frozen. It was just foggy.
I could drive in a fog. Do I get points for that?
You know where the goalposts are. He just kicked as hard as he could, and it went through, and it got him drafted in the 4th round, and it's always driven me nuts. And I hope someday I can change the score, but if I never do, don't care.
I have to look
so
at the
mad at him.
statistics for that. Kickers being picked in the 4th round, even or later, a little bit later, maybe. Anyways,
Ooh, we're about to bail this draft out, though. We're about to bail out a draft with a rocky start.
You go ahead, Chad. This is all you.
So, round 5, pick 155. Also, pick swap later on that we'll talk about. The Browns select Amari Cooper, wide receiver from the Dallas Cowboys.
I like how you say that. Hold on.
Talk about a steal.
Hold on.
We're holding. Okay, there you go.
The Cleveland Browns select
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper. Loved it. So they got this pick off the Dallas Cowboys. This is a dude that was like still throwing up 1,000 yards every season after like his 6 years in the NFL. And the Dallas Cowboys were just like, well, we drafted CeeDee Lamb, and why would we want 2 elite receivers on this team? Why would we want to do what other teams are doing by just building an incredible offense? We don't want this guy. They handed him to us for a 5th round pick. And I mean, I graded him as a 2. We talked about it before the show, and we feel like if you have to pay a guy because he's already on his 2nd or 3rd contract that you paid for, we're taking away a half-point subtraction because it makes it tougher for you to team build because now you've got $20 million on the books instead of your own rookie who's getting paid like $1 million. But this is definitely a 2-point elite player at a core 6 position. So minus the 0.5 for him being older and already under a pretty big contract, which we might have to even dish out a little more for, that still lands him as a 1.5 points added to this draft.
I'll give him my paycheck weekly if he stays. I'll
if
do
it
that.
will help. If it'll help, a GoFundMe. We can't go fund people that make $20 million a year.
Yeah, I would not.
Ridiculous. You think about it that way, you're like, I'll keep him. I want to keep him, but he should be GoFunding us for watching this team through all the bad years.
Correct.
So that really elevates this draft. So, and you have to count it towards the draft because they used their picks. They brought in a player. Maybe he's not a rookie, but like, it's not the same as free agency. They used picks to get him. This counts for the draft.
All right. Yep. Let's move on. We're gonna pay the guy. We're gonna figure out a way. Andrew Berry, we trust. That's the motto.
And I'll take another. We have him this year. I'll take an extra year of him next season after this one also.
Oh yeah.
He'll still have enough gas in the tank for that.
So round 5, Jerome Ford, 156, running back out of Cincinnati, a 1. And I agree with that. It's a consistent starter at a non-core position or rotational starter at a core position.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost give him 1.5.
Last year, whew.
What was he? 160 yards shy of 1,000 yards.
1,000. And that was
1,000.
Yeah.
And he didn't play the first game. He barely played in the first game.
He didn't play in the first or second game much.
A couple carries, had a fumble. Yeah.
Yep. He was quiet.
So in 15-ish regular season games, yeah, he put up 800 and something yards, 896 yards, I forget what, and 800 and something yards, and I think he had like 4 yards per carry, and he still was in the upper end of the league for like yards after contact for a guy I didn't know had that in him. So this, as first year, as 2022, was a guy I was just pretty unimpressed with because Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb didn't even allow him to see the field. Last year, when he was forced into action, he really stepped up for me, and he's going to probably start the season as their starter again this year.
And that's again the offensive line that we have to thank for that. He's
part of it.
Part of it.
The guards, the interior is incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Chad, what is this? Round 6. Michael Woods, the second, via 202nd versus 193. Wide receiver out of Oklahoma.
Yeah. So the 202, the 193 is because when we traded for Cooper, we agreed to swap picks.
That's right.
With the Cowboys also. So they got our 193. Which I think they used on a linebacker who I don't really know, and we got to 202. Realistically, with our needs, we might have taken this guy 10 picks earlier at 193. It's 9. Yeah. It's a 9-pick difference. We might have picked the same guy.
Yeah.
Didn't do much. That was obvious. We're gonna just move along.
Injured the whole time. He's been injured more than Phillips was. He's never touched the field.
Round 6, Isaiah Thomas, 223rd pick, defensive end out of Oklahoma, 0.
I think he missed that whole rookie season on IR. He was supposed to be the more groomed, ready to play version of Alex Wright. He was a little older, had more experience, and there was like, well, maybe he'll actually be more impactful earlier because he's more ready. Kind of the David Bell talk, like, oh, he's more polished. And he's just not good enough from what I can tell. He wasn't even a rotational player for us so far.
No. Round 7. Who in the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Dawson Deaton.
Dawson Deaton?
246 picks, center out of Texas Tech.
0. That's a good point. Yeah.
He's not on our team anymore, in case you're wondering. Well, he already got cut. They released him, I believe, this offseason after 2023, which was in our talk about losing the coach, the line coach, where I never talk trash against Callahan. Everybody loves him. He's great. But, like, I still had my questions about how he did with rookies because it seems like he does really great with veteran players. But, like, Dawson Deaton is not even on the team anymore. Nick Harris didn't end up, staying with this team. Jedrick Wills, everybody thinks was his best player as a rookie and has just gone downhill since then. And I know that's not a ton to go off of, but like it made me at least not feel like he's not an incredible line coach, but maybe like it's not all doom and gloom and the sky's not going to fall because we lost him, because our core players who are already good, at least for the next year or two, will stay good. And we're not getting anything out of these rookies until literally right now, the first time in 2023, which obviously we'll get to.
Couple comments real quick. Paul Moyer says Barry knows his defensive backs.
Seems like it.
Yeah. No argument there. None.
I mean, he missed on a flyer with LeCount, but like Emerson, Newsome, Delpit, like these are all starting players on the number 1 defense in the NFL.
Yeah, top 5 for the linebackers, correct?
I'm
sorry. I mean, defensive backs. Period.
Yeah. Let's hope he channels some of that energy to receivers. We need to start looking at what we can do at the receiving core as far as young talent, but that's a different topic.
Yes. Dawson Deaton. Oh, here's another. Dylan says Dawson Deaton was my favorite player. What are you guys talking about? I'm kidding.
Yeah, sure.
Honestly, you're like 7th round flyer, but for center, sometimes you think, well, that's not that valued of a position. Maybe this kid's actually, worth having around. And he must have shown nothing, because if you're like in your early 20, if you're like a 23-year-old or 24-year-old, and you were a draft pick of a team, even that late, and you're not even on the team after 2 seasons, I do think, though, I will say, I believe he came in his rookie year, literally showed nothing, but it was a deep room with guys like Pocic and Harris. I think last year he tore his ACL or something of that sort. I think it was the ACL early, like either in camp. And when he got waived, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's because he didn't pass his physical. But I know
Right.
that often the
I
NFL
remember
does
that.
that. They don't pass their physical, quote, on air quotes for everybody that can't see me, because they're like, he's not that good anyway, and we can just let him off with an injury like release. So
We are going to take a quick break here in a second. We're almost an hour in. I do want to take a quick break to let everybody know that does not know, though, that is here from 21 on, we had 0 first-round draft picks. 0.
And it continues.
we've just been skipping
This
them
is-
because if you mention that, then you have to mention why, and it's like, ugh.
So
Annoying.
the Deshaun Watson draft debt is paid in full.
Yep.
Next year we will have a number 1 draft pick. So with that being said, let's take a really quick break. Cool with that?
Okay.
Yeah.
And
How are we doing on time?
we're 57 minutes in right now.
But
Yeah.
We got off track somehow.
No, yeah, it happens. We do that every week, but why stop now? We have 2 drafts to touch base with really quick when we come back. They're pretty good. We're gonna
One, really. We can't really grade the newest one, but
right, but we're gonna let everybody know who's coming or here. Yeah, take a quick break. While we're on this break, everybody go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe, everything, and we'll be right back. Do I got to be the one to say we're always back?
We're back?
Hey.
What? We
Hey.
don't know if we're
Hey.
back yet.
Hey.
Now we're back. Now I can see the
Uh,
screen.
Hey.
Chad and
We're
Angel are
back.
back again. All
I
right.
told you that was a quick break. It was so quick that you didn't even know we were on break.
Okay, so we fudged up the time, and we're way behind, and so but we're gonna breeze through these because all of these grades are make believe anyway. Because how do you
They're
grade
too
guys
early.
that played one season or may have not even
Correct.
gotten on the roster yet? So
Correct.
Facts. So let's start the timer now. Round 2, pick 42, traded for 74, and Elijah Moore. Boom. Elijah
tentative
Moore.
one.
Yeah,
Elijah Moore's got a chance to start for this team again this year after putting up 50 yards last season.
And he will.
And to bring in him, to give up a second round pick and bring in a second round talent type guy like Elijah Moore and bring in a very early third round pick from a team that's just not very good was an okay move in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. We seen what Joe Flacco could do with him. I think Ken Dorsey is also going to give that guy some more reps on the field. I think that kid's year is time to shine. It's going to be this year.
And also, like, you know, he underperformed what I think the very hyped up, like, 1,000 yards expectations were for him before the season. But he put up around 650 yards and, like, in a wide receiver 2 role. And that's, like, kind of on the low end for me. But also pretty legitimate, like, season for him. He was a contributor despite being completely miscast for the first month of the season or more. He really came around the second half.
I agree. Andrew, got anything on Elijah Moore?
No, he's a good player. Good pick. Good trade.
Love it. Real quick. Round 3, Cedric Tillman, pick 74, wide receiver out of Tennessee, 0.5. I could agree with the 0.5.
I love the potential.
Yeah.
There is plenty of
Yeah,
potential.
that can only go up, right? I mean, if he reaches his potential, he could be a 1, maybe a 1.5. Who knows? But like, Cedric Tillman was a disaster last year on the field. All the reports are that he spent a lot of the offseason working on his routes, working on trying to understand the game better.
Yep.
But the things that you like about him are his size, some of his physical gifts, and that's a little bit less teachable. He's tall, he's fast enough, and like he's just a player that, like, for a 3rd-round pick, a lot of really good guys in the game, past receivers and others, analysts, really liked his potential. So question is, now that Andrews picked him, can the coaches turn him into a better player?
And if you read the early mini camp, they said that he really is showing growth, so that's encouraging.
Yeah, he's getting a ton of reps. Amari's not there. Moore missed a little time. Judy missed a little time. So, it was his time to shine, and it looks like he's trying to take full advantage.
I think
I wouldn't hate it if he works his way into being one of the top 2, 3, or at least at the minimum 4 receivers on this team this year.
James Frank, real quick, we'll touch base with these. James Frank said, let Cedric block. Will put that one man on his ass.
He did. Baltimore guy.
Dylan says,
we look at that block a million times from Pickens over in Pittsburgh, where he just like barreled into a dude.
I couldn't believe there wasn't a flag. He stood over him for a second, was like, what? I'm like, oh, stop that.
No.
I need to see that kind of like dogness out of Cedric Tillman, though, because he's that kind of size where he can just burst off the line. And if he wants to, they put a small cornerback on him, he can just pop a guy. So we'll see if he has that kind of like in him.
Dylan says he hopes to see some good production out of Tillman, and I agree.
Yeah.
I think we all
Me
do.
too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
Give it a shot.
Yes, round 3, Siaka Ika, 98 pick linebacker out of BYU, and it's See ya, dude. You're gone. Bye bye.
So far, he may have been the worst. He might have been the worst defensive player on our team last year. And again, only a rookie. Maybe he didn't even belong out there yet. So I didn't even bother to grade him. But like, he was the worst PFF scorer. I saw 0 impactful plays from him, and I saw him just getting. He just does. It's like a Tommy Togiai situation where like he just doesn't have the oomph to keep on the line. The difference is he's, if I'm remembering correctly, much bigger, much heftier of a player.
Yeah.
And he's still getting pushed off the line, and it just can't happen. Not for a 3rd rounder. You got to be better.
Not only because of OSU, but let's talk about this next player, a big hefty guy.
OSU.
My guy, our guy. I'm sorry, our guy.
Ohio State
Round 4th pick,
University.
DeJuan Jones, 111th pick, offensive tackle out of where, Angel?
The Ohio State University.
And that's a 1.5. That kid
1.5.
has so much potential. We could talk about this kid a whole show. I'm sure of
It
it.
could go up or down, but like if he as a rookie getting a 1.5 already at a 4th round pick is monster performance.
Amazing.
Like that is I'm in a core position. I'm a consistent starter at that position, which I don't think anybody doubts he could be. And time will tell. There's never any guarantees, which is why we don't finalize these grades yet. But the kid that looks like this is one of the biggest hits Andrew Berry's gotten and one of the better players he's drafted.
Yeah. It could be the steal of that draft if he continues.
Could be.
4th round, man. He could be Joe Thomas if he.
And I can't remember exactly how we got 2 4th rounders in this draft. Whether that was part of a different trade or whether it was compensatory. I don't remember how it happened. If we got a compensatory, maybe, but we got another 4th rounder too. And one of these days, I'm going to look back and find out where all these picks came from.
What is up, Diggs? Our first Twitch comment there. Boom.
Oh, nice.
Twitch is happening. What is up, Diggs? Thank you for joining us.
Which is happening.
We're going to move on from DeJuan Jones. Like I said, I know we could talk about this guy for hours, but round 4, Isaiah McGuire, 126th pick, defensive line out of Missouri.
Nothing yet. I mean, he barely touched the field. Yeah. There is some talk that they really think he can be a rotational player on that line and have some versatility. but like it's not a shock that this is the grades wise, like in 2023, and it'll be the same case in 2024. If you're picked after like the third round, DeJuan Jones being a big exception, you're probably not going to make any impact. You're not expected to. And on a team this good, the guys drafted even in the third round on this team, we know Zach Sinter's not going to play when we get to the next round. Like it's just he's there. He's in a position where you can't grade him because guys in front of him are so good. He doesn't get to play yet. So I have no idea whether
I like the
he can play.
rotational defensive line player. Obviously, if somebody gets winded, I think it's possible he could run out there and.
I mean, it's hard to even make this team on the defensive line. I'll give him props. I think he's going to make the team again for the second year in a row.
I agree.
But the line is deep. It's maybe one of our 2 deepest positions. So, good luck to the kid.
Round 5, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, pick 140, quarterback out of UCLA. We've watched the kid shine in preseason, but you're playing second and third stringers. Obviously, somebody's got to shine.
2.5. He would have got a 2.5 preseason grade if that was the real him.
True. Yeah.
He would have been an elite player at the most elite position quarterback, and he was a preseason superhero. Now he might not make the team. So
I think he has potential. You gotta let him sit on the sidelines and somebody's got to talk to him.
He needs to bulk up a little bit though. He's still skinny. He's like my weight right now.
Little guy.
Angel's so mad he's throwing stuff. I think the kid has potential. He's a productional player. He could be something good as a backup. I'd imagine. Maybe not on the Browns.
Maybe.
He gets too scared under pressure, and he just whips the ball out. And
the real game affected him a lot more than when they didn't rush in preseason. When things were really happening in real time, he couldn't handle it. He was throwing crazy picks, like running out of the pocket, just couldn't handle it. And but we'll see. Again, these players are all going to be wait and see guys. The whole rest of the draft here.
Let's go with
round 5.
Yeah, go ahead, Angel. You're there.
Round 5, Cameron Mitchell, 142, defensive back, Northwestern, another Big Ten guy.
He earned a preliminary 0.5, right?
Yeah,
because I think he's already our primary backup at quarterback.
Yeah. Again, Barry knows those DBs, man. He has an eye for that.
And that's another name you hear on TV. That's a big thing for me. I don't know if anybody else agrees, but when you hear somebody's name on a big play happening, could anybody agree with that, or is that just
affects
me?
You? Yeah. No, you start to catch it. It's why I look at PFF, because when you don't hear that, you just sort of forget players played. But it's good when a impactful position player like a defensive end or a defensive lineman or a cornerback, you are hearing their name for swatting a ball down or for coverage. And again, it's almost impossible to contribute this late in the draft if you're on a good team. Maybe in 2000 when we stunk, we expected all these guys to play, but now we don't. But Cameron Mitchell, there's all this talk about he has this, great connection with Greg Newsome, and they played together at some point, and he caught onto things really quick in camp. And as a rookie, he was filling in when we had injured guys. He was our rotational corner that could actually get out there. And so he's a guy that I'm pretty high on, could earn himself an actual grade for this draft after 2-3 years go by.
And what about you hear Jim Donovan's voice scream somebody's name, man? That's sunk into your head. That's not
my
going
spirit
anywhere.
voice.
Yeah. He retired from the news, and he is still doing the Browns. I'm thankful for that, man. Thankful.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We have round 6, Luke Whippler, 190, offensive line out of OSU, and I think this kid could be a promising backup, for sure. Promising backup.
Versatile. He already did backup this year. He came in this year with all those guard injuries we had.
Right.
He was drafted as a center, but there's some talk that he could play a little guard. Between both Batonio and Teller having some things going on this year, especially Batonio getting banged up for a rare time later in his career. Him and Michael Dunn had to go into action a little bit, and from what I remember from his performances, he held up pretty well. So if he's doing that as a rookie with no off season to like build his body, not that much coaching, like it's a good sign that he at least like held his own. So, shout out to Barry for potentially pulling, multiple late round contributors out of this draft, which is really all you can hope for, since our goal of this was to see how Andrew drafts. Like, that's really the only goal.
Just get depth. At this point, you need depth because your team is good. Also, I'm going to point out that he has 2 Buckeyes off the board here in 2023. Thank you.
Yeah. And
He doesn't have to stop drafting Buckeyes. Keep us happy.
that 23 draft overall grade is a 3.5.
Yeah, and the only reason I put that down, again, none of these scores are finalized. There's a bunch of guys that have like incompletes, no score at all.
Right.
That could have scores. Some guys that have like a 0.5 who could move up. They sign Elijah Moore to a second contract. He could move up. But to look at a draft where almost nobody should have even contributed and to know that there's like 3.5 points worth of like useful players, to me,
That's a good
is
draft.
impressive because that was like his 2021 draft. That's a lot of the old Browns GM's best drafts was to get,
Yeah.
2 to 3 useful players out of the draft. Like that was not uncommon for us. And again, the way I'm grading this draft is how many contributing pieces did you get out of this draft worth different values? Again, this is the 3rd draft in a row where we didn't get a first round pick. And that's where you expect to get your 2.5, your 2, your 1.5, and even like 1 level players. So without that huge chunk, I read a thing, we were talking about who makes the roster earlier. They said like an average of 32 or 31 and change out of 32 people in the first round drafted make the team and contribute. So 3 years in a row, we didn't have like what seems like an automatic at least 1 point unless you really flop that pick, and at least an average of 1, if not better, if you're drafting this well. And we didn't have it. And Andrew Barry still was able to like put together good, useful drafts. So
I agree.
Facts.
So, yeah, you could take that 3.5 any way y'all want, but that's our score.
Take it.
is it make-believe points that don't really matter?
Yeah, because everybody
Yeah.
does it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so before we started the week, we actually did a poll on Twitter, X, and Facebook. I think it was like 67% of everybody between both graded Andrew Barry a B
Well,
throughout his tenure in Cleveland. And I think I could stand behind that. A B is a solid grade. There's a couple C's, not many A's.
haters.
There was like 1 D.
Yeah, he's a hater.
There's
Yeah,
that
that's a
one
hater.
guy. There's always
that
that
one guy.
one guy. Always.
Okay,
you wanna-
quick math
if you-
with me. Quick math with me. Let's see. So the first draft, we gave a final grade of 5.5. The second draft, we gave 3.5, so 9. And the third draft, which I think it's reasonable to say like the 1 more year, 2 more years before we can give a final grade, but the
Yeah.
tentative grade is a 5.
5.
Just taking those 3, 5, 10.5, 14.
Can you guys
14
hear that?
points. No.
Oh, that just meant our time was up. I didn't know if you could hear it or not.
Oh, no.
No, we didn't hear it.
So 14
five-
points divided by what? 3? Why can't I do that math just in my head without looking?
Three,
Is
four,
a
6,
4.7.
9, 12.
4.7. That's
Yes,
almost
that's
a
a-
5.
That's a 4.7. So
Yeah.
on the grading scale, we are looking at like that's like an B plus to an A minus on like the make believe tentative grading scale that we just talked about. And that to me, that's what helps me like solidify scale. That makes sense to me. It feels like the drafts we've gone through. I do think this is like B minus to A plus or B plus to A minus work. So they're not that far off in the polls. So people have been paying attention to what this dude has been doing. And by the way, in his first just 4 years as a GM making picks. So If he can keep the magic going, like this is good enough to build a good, sustainable, consistent franchise. It would be great if he could do better. Occasionally, I'm sure he will do worse. There's always going to be years like 2021 where like there's a bunch of misses. It happens, and like we talked about with guys like Nick Harris with the injuries and others, like some of it's out of his control if they change coaches or change schemes, or if a guy gets hurt and like he just never reaches his potential. But you got to think like now that we've got at least 3 really good samples that we can get a complete-ish grade on and still have potential to change a little, and then 2 other drafts under him where we can we'll get to see more and more. You got to be feeling like we got a pretty good thing going on in Cleveland with Andrew Berry.
Right.
Yep.
I'm looking at Chad's notes here on our document here, and it says 2024 draft class. We don't need to do this really, but we're going to run through it because there's obviously no way of grading it.
Okay. We can. Yeah, like you can't grade anybody that hasn't played yet, right? So it's like the only reason worth kind of doing it is because like there was also again trades made, and it just gives people an idea of like who they drafted, because some of these guys they drafted may be the future replacements for some of those guys we talked about in 20 and 21 that aren't going to end up on the team.
Yeah. Wait. I'm looking it up here, James. Who is that new doctor that the Cleveland Browns hired? Physical therapist, I believe. Chad, you should know.
I think he's actually a chiro, and he's not treating for the Browns. I think he was hired as their director of health and wellness services.
That's right.
So he's going to be basically the boss of like the trainers and the nutritionists, and like he's going to put together probably help put together with the dietitians and the trainers oversee their work to make sure they're doing a good job. He's going to be kind of like a manager. I know he has worked in a lot of sports and Olympic stuff in the past. But it is a situation where I think he is in a very management position, overseeing how they just approach health and wellness as a team during the season, and then with their medical staff.
Dustin Nobhan as a new head of athlete health and performance.
Mm-hmm. So again, he's going to be the personal trainer and the athletic trainers and the other wellness dietitian recovery staffs boss, and make sure that they have a good program. And it's not shocking. Geez, how many guys got injured on this team last year? We led the league in guys on IR. And at one point we had a record for the most players on a Browns roster who missed games. So I don't think it's, I know some of that's fluky, muscle tears and stuff, but it's not a bad time to probably say, hey, let's reapproach the way we're looking at health and wellness for these guys. It doesn't always mean the way they're working either. He might be the type of guy who's hey, this guy needs rest. We have to make sure we put together a schedule of rest days for the veterans. We have to make sure we put together a diet appropriate to these guys' size so they can gain weight at an appropriate time frame for their body, all that stuff. So
Dylan said Dr. Dre's the new doctor, and I can imagine that. Here guys, I got some medicinal stuff for you here.
Well,
you're healed.
That's how they used to do it. They just put a bowl of pills in the middle of the locker room and be like, anybody hurting?
So here's how we're going to do the 2024 draft class, and then we'll do the 30 seconds of fame, because I got another question for you guys this week. Either thumbs up, thumbs or thumbs down. Okay? Just going to run through the names. As soon as I say that name, thumbs up, side, or down. Cool?
Get my thumbs.
Do it.
Get my
Can't
thumbs
do
ready.
this. Obviously, Deshaun Watson trade is done. Trade debt. Oh, wow, Angel gets fireworks for that.
I give it one thumb.
The
I give him a
Watson
side
trade.
thumb.
And
Side thumb.
Chad said
To be
it's
decided.
a 2, hopefully, or 1.5.
Yeah, he can earn as high as a 2, but
It's gotta
at
be this
least
year.
he should be a franchise quarterback for this team, even if he's not an elite one. He has to be, or this trade was a bust because you traded Baker Mayfield, who is a legitimate mediocre franchise quarterback.
Yes.
So I'm counting it in this year's draft because with his suspension and his injury, we didn't get
done.
to see much performance. And honestly, we signed him to a 5-year deal. There's 3 years left. At the time that deal's done, it will be a perfectly fair time to grade how was Cleveland Browns Deshaun Watson.
Absolutely. Mike Hall Jr. pick a second round pick, 54th pick, defensive tackle out of Ohio State.
He's a
Another thumbs
Buckeye,
medium.
so he gets a thumbs up.
Not only
Okay.
because of
Okay,
that,
you're right.
I think the kid might have
No,
potential.
I think he's going to be good too. Yeah.
He's got a
Um,
skill set. He's a pass rushing interior guy.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
got a chance in
Yeah.
after these old guys that we all have in the interior step away to like boom, move right in and make an impact.
Round 3, Zach Zinter, 85th pick, guard out of Michigan.
Just because he's from Michigan, I'm
Not,
just playing.
not only
I'm
because
just
he's
playing.
not only because he's a guard. I agree
I-
with you, Angel, but the kid could play center as well
Yeah,
if
he's good.
needed. He is also a center. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're loaded at center, but it's never hurts to have a guy who can play 3 different line positions.
Consider
Uh,
that.
I mean, thumbs up. It was a weird pick for the 3rd round to go guard, but I think it just tells you they are reality has struck about Teller and Bitonio getting older, and they let some other older backups walk. So just a cheap
They're
way
trying
to
to
back
pick
up
up
your
some
guards.
Prime young
Yep.
guys.
Future starter. I'd be shocked if he's not a future starter. He's
I would.
a really good college player.
Damn it! I hate saying that. Just 'cause of it.
I mean, like it or not, Michigan
Can we
was
put an
pretty good
asterisk?
in the trenches.
Can we put an
Yeah.
asterisk next to his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's-
Yeah. You know what? Here, Zach. Take that
I don't like
until
to
you
like
show
it.
up.
If we're gonna take a player from Michigan, just smash him on the line and then like let's just call it.
So how
Yeah.
does this how does this round 5 work here? Jerry Judy.
Judy.
We traded the
We traded Jerry Judy was picked with the 135th and the 202nd pick. We traded a 5th and
7th.
late 6th
Oh,
rounder.
it was a 6th. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it was a late 5th and a late 6th to get Jerry Judy. So he was the 135th and the 202 pick.
Did
Nice.
you give Jerry Judy an
I like that.
asterisk?
Yeah, because we can't grade him yet. He hasn't done anything yet.
he hasn't
Yeah,
done
I
anything
know,
for the
but he's
Browns
done
yet.
stuff in Broncos. Anyways,
Everybody this year is an
Yeah.
asterisk. Like he hasn't
Yeah.
played for us yet.
round 5, Jamari Thrash, 156th pick, wide receiver. I'm going to,
Boomer bust. I'm going thumbs middle.
yeah.
Yeah,
I have high hopes for the kid, but
yeah.
we'll see what
For
happens.
me, he's a guy that I could see in 2 years, like just nothing. And I could also see like him getting some fill-in time and making some explosive plays that drive everybody crazy. So, yeah, we'll see.
Round 6, Nathaniel Watson, 206 pick, linebacker. I'm like,
I love picking linebackers late because
Value.
he's just going to be he's a special teamer. He's going to contribute somewhere. Value pick, I'll take it.
round 7, Miles Harden, 227th pick, cornerback. Yeah.
And
Tough
I'm
room.
gonna say because he has an eye for backs, maybe he sees something in Harden. But
Yeah, that's true. He's hit these late flyer secondary guys before, so this wouldn't be a
Yeah.
shocker.
Round 7. This is probably one of my favorites. I'm not
Yeah,
going
this
to
is your
BS
boy.
you. Jawan Briggs, 243rd pick, defensive tackle, man.
I actually also like Juwan Briggs. I think the chance of him working out is like slim to none. So this isn't like a thumbs up. He's going to be great. This is like taking a flyer on a guy who had so much stuff going on in college and was still productive. Like, just always makes me wonder if he's just going to be one of those guys who's like, thanks for the shot. I'm going to grind and like sticks around as some kind of rotational backup on the defensive line for a while. Now that he can just like not go to class, go to practice, and go to a part-time job, just go to the Browns facility, give it his all, and like maybe he's better than he was able to be with all that stuff on his plate.
I
For the
agree.
7th round, like, why not?
Exactly. I think that's going to be one of the kids that just shows up and balls like. I can't even explain it. I just have high hopes for this kid, and I don't know why.
He's a lovable story. I mean, the story we read about him earlier in the season, like all the stuff he went through in college with like having to move to be by his like girl and his kids and having to work like these part-time jobs and give up like work being at a certain college to do this stuff, coming back to Ohio, like all of this stuff. It's, I mean,
'Cause
if
he's
you
out
guys
of
have a second to go
Cincinnati.
read about him, tell me you read a story about him and don't come out being like, oh, I want this kid to succeed as much as anybody on the Browns.
Watch the
It's just
interview at the
hard
mini
not to.
camp. That's all you need to do. That's
Yes.
it. Just
Yeah, and he's got a great personality. He's a really lovable character. I can't wait to get him on the show.
yes, that's going to be an amazing day.
Mm-mm.
So you guys ready for 30 seconds of fame real quick?
Yes.
I got a question for y'all. Let's do this. Hold on. "30 seconds of fame." Question of the week is if you guys could pick any player in Browns history to put on today's team, who would it be?
Gosh.
For me, it'd be a simple answer. The best Brown
So
in Brown
easy.
history, Jim Brown. You put him on this team with that line, the potential good receivers, and with a good quarterback in Watson, you have a level better than Nick Chubb behind the line. I mean, why would you not go?
I
with
wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go as far as good as Nick Chubb because he's already broken the touchdown record. But
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown?
Some people think he's the greatest of all time.
he's the greatest five. of
by
all
that, Chad,
time.
did you mean GOAT?
Some people think. Well, because I was going to say the greatest running back of all time, and then I was like, but that's not even it. Some people think like he
In
was just the
general.
best player. Yeah.
He was a beast.
Is that what the kids are calling him this day? Goats?
Yeah, goats. I'm too old. for
Totes my
that.
goats. That's what happens when you
Um,
have kids. You say weird things.
Man, honestly, I might say that I would feel really good on this team with Joe Thomas and never having to think about the left tackle position for the whole year. I think that gives you two incredible right tackles, an incredible left tackle, a left tackle backup. I mean, maybe you don't need Jim Brown if your offensive line is that good. You just run Jerome Ford past everybody untouched. I don't know. He would be on my short list of guys to just plug in here and be like, give me that Joe Thomas Hall of Fame magic.
That was a
Yep.
big pick amongst many others. I'm going to go with something that somebody didn't really go with a lot, and I was 4 years old when this guy was playing. But I would love to see Brian Sipe out there for one more year, just 1 year. Give the guy the Cleveland crown and let him just ball out, man. That I think would be incredible to watch that guy again with the way football is today. I think it'd be awesome. Not a lot of people
San
said
Diego
it,
State University?
huh?
San Diego State University?
Yes,
Brian Sipe?
he's actually out there right by you right now. He actually lives by
I
you.
know it. I know
Right,
it. He's
he
always
lives-
too
he
busy
lives in the
to
valley
talk with me in
behind you.
football.
Yeah, go stalk him.
He does not come to the Browns backers bar.
Oh.
I feel like he may be reviewing game film from the day before, but that's no excuse.
Listen, I've tried to get a hold of him somehow to have him on the show, and there's no, I can't find him. So yeah,
I will call that's a hard pick because as much as the Browns have been trash for about the 20 years of their new existence, there's a handful of guys that you wish you could see again, and even more so like when you look into the past at all the Hall of Famers they had, you know, let's plug somebody. Let's find some more guys like that in our history.
here,
Some of
since we
these
need a
guys.
wide receiver, what wide receiver would you put? I would go with
Paul
Paul
Warfield.
Warfield.
Paul Warfield, yeah.
Oh my God.
That's unanimous.
Hey, by the way, Josh Gordon, just that 1 year of Josh
Yeah,
Gordon where
A
he went for
healthy
like
Josh Gordon.
1,500
Yes.
yards.
I don't know if you've
healthy
seen, Chad. We
Spencer.
made a post about like what would you want your number one player to be if you had this choice, and I can't tell you how many people said Josh Gordon. A lot
Because
of people
if
said Josh
you
Cribbs.
watch just that one, if you put that level of receiver on this team, like that's like a Jamar Chase level of receiver when he was here. He just
Was mentally not there. Just
disappeared off the map
Yeah.
because of all the
Yep.
other issues. But like
Squirrel.
you look at this team and you're like, if you have a playmaker of that ability, oh,
Oh goodness.
Deshaun Watson's job got so easy.
Yeah.
He would take like 8-yard slants and just run them for 70-yard touchdowns. It's like
Yak yards,
drive
baby.
past everyone.
Yak yards.
Boom.
That's what you like
Oh
to
man,
see.
he's a
Yak
yak
yards.
machine.
Chad, are you still editing in there?
No,
I just seen your name pop up, and then
Um,
there you are again.
I just click around a lot.
Clicking
It's
all
not editing now.
Nice.
To end the show, like, don't forget, while we're speaking of older players, prayers to Bernie because of his, he came out saying that he's on the list for a new liver and transplant or kidney. And he
Yeah, and
has,
apparently he's having early onset of Parkinson's symptoms too, which is it's
yeah.
worrisome. You know, the guy has been through like
Hell and
the
back.
health ringer to the point where like people just assumed he was always like, you know, drunk on TV because he's got like a stutter and twitching, and you know, the more that comes out about his actual, he's been so open about it too. The more that comes out about his actual like physical problems and medical problems, it's really rough, man. You feel for the guy. He and Jim Donovan are just constantly overcoming like these terrible like reoccurring medical issues, and like they're two of the most like lovable guys in Browns like lore, at least, who are still around, and it sucks.
It does.
I wish him the best vibes for Bernie.
Sometimes me and Bernie sound the same at the end of the show.
And
Yeah.
Is that too soon? Jeez,
Yeah.
that was wrong. That was wrong. I apologize, Bernie. We love
on
you, man.
that note,
It's time to end the show,
night.
ladies and
and
gentlemen.
then the show.
Oh,
Well, we made it exactly 1 hour
yeah.
for anybody who started listening 1 hour or less ago.
Well, we're at 1 minute, or I'm sorry, 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 14 seconds right now.
Oh,
And that's with the
so-
intro and the break. So
We're
we
the
did-
worst. Who
For
wants
on
to listen
record-
to us? Who wants
for
to
on
listen to us for that long? What
For
you
on-
guys don't you have anything to do?
I would. And for record, I think an hour and a half is going to be
respectable.
the status quo. It's just going to be.
I guess
hard
for
us to
off
start.
season, I guess there's nothing going on. If this is off season, if I download this podcast and just keep listening to it like in chunks, like
Yeah.
oh I'll listen to the 2020 draft, and then like oh I got to go into work. I'll listen to the rest on the way out.
Tune in
But-
next week. See if we can get in an hour.
Yeah, we're gonna have a special guest with us next week.
Oh, right. No, we have a guest. Forget it. It's going to be a 2-hour show.
I think he's going to have an accent. No, we're going to do like almost barely. I mean, this topic we should have known. I mean, every time we go too
Yeah.
long, we're like, why? And it's like we just covered 5 drafts. How long? We think it was going to take like a minute each.
Yeah, we tried. I
I
guess
guess I
an A for
was
effort.
right. I said
We
4
did. Who was in
times.
charge of the timer? That's who I blame for this. Here's the thing, guys. If you talk too much and you waste too much time with like your own takes, all you have to do is blame the person who's supposed to be moving you along. So that's why I let Mike control the timer. So like I can never take the full blame for talking too much.
That's
Well,
music.
That's the music. We are out.
That's the
1 hour,
music.
30 minutes, and 45 seconds
up.
in. Thank
Nice
you guys
show.
for joining us. Hey, by next week,
Good
let's
job.
make that subscriber list jump up.
Subscribe us on YouTube.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everything. We're on everything because Angel called me out earlier and made a reel about me subscribing
We're on
us to
everything.
something new
We're
this
on
week.
everything, man. Whatever. If there's a new app coming out tomorrow, we're on it already.
We're
Hey,
on-
keep your eyes out on our socials. I'm going to post that. I'm not only going to post the grading scale we came up with, I'm going to also post we are going to post draft by draft our like players and grades
Scores.
and scores.
Perfect. Yep.
And we're on Podbean now if you want to check us out there because
See?
I had to. Yeah. Well, we will see you guys next week. We have a guy with an accent. I like how you did that, actually, Chad. We have a guy with an accent joining us.
There's someone with an accent that's going to be on here.
It's
so
going to be
you
a
don't wanna
fun
miss
show.
that.